Now, we've been covering allegations that the Met is institutionally misogynistic on this show recently. And just last week, the Home Secretary said that she was appalled and sickened by the misogynistic behaviours within the force.
Yes, well, now the daughter of late comedian Des O'Connor, Christina, has launched legal action against the Metropolitan Police after an officer, she claims, made inappropriate comment towards her, including comments that were sexual advances, and he kept his job. Well, Jenny Holland is a writer and commentator on the issues of misogyny and feminism, and she joins us now. Jenny, thank you for joining us. Just like to get your reaction initially about all the revelations that have been coming, being revealed really over the last couple of weeks around allegations of misogyny in the Met. What do you make of those?
Yeah, I mean, they really are coming hard and fast, aren't they? I think that the Met definitely has an image problem, at the very least. But actually, I think it's much deeper than that. I think that UK policing and even the criminal justice system as a whole has a very unsettling image problem indicative of misogyny and very strange and I would say creepy attitudes towards women in general.
And what do you think can be done about this? Because we spoke to some former officers last week, and they said, look, this is not a widespread problem necessarily. These are a few bad apples, so to speak. And actually, the vast majority of officers would never dream of saying these sorts of things. And it's no different from the few bad apples that you'd find in any other institution. That is some people's views. What would you say to that?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, they might well be right, but on the other hand, the police needs to be held to a much higher standard because of the powers they hold over the general population. We are supposed to be able to turn to police in our moments of greatest vulnerability and fear. And I think the worst thing about this Christina O'Connor story is that she was propositioned after being beaten up and given a black eye. It's the last thing you want is to have to fend off some creepy cop after you've been punched in the face. But I mean, there's much bigger and more serious violations going on here. I mean, just a week or so ago, a disabled woman in Wales was arrested and held for 10 hours while the police searched her home for going through her reading material because she was stickering that women have cervixes. I don't think that that should be a crime. I certainly don't think that a disabled woman should be kept in confinement for such a long period of time for expressing biological reality. So, I mean, I think that what we're seeing here is two things. One is a breakdown of good management, but in a much bigger sense, we're also looking at political policing. And this is something that the Met has to keep going back to because it's dealing with Downing Street and it's dealing with these WhatsApp groups on Charing Cross Police Station. And over all of that, as almost like this superstructure, is this what feels from the outside as a woman, what feels like something like ideological capture of British policing.
What would you? We've been talking a lot about accountability in a political context this morning. You know, should Boris Johnson be held accountable for the parties he had? Should, Keir Starmer be held accountable for the Jimmy Savile comment that Boris Johnson made? We've been talking about whether people at the top should take responsibility for the things going on in the institutions. What does it say to women across the country that the head of the Met Police is a woman and that these things are still obviously happening at a considerable scale?
Yeah, it doesn't fill you with confidence, does it? And not only is she a woman, but according to the news reports I read, the police officer in the O'Connor case is on her staff now. So obviously his bad behavior was rewarded and not stopped. Yeah, I mean, I personally think government bureaucracy is completely out of control. I don't think the kind of political figureheads at the top of it, either they don't know or don't realize or don't really care. I think the burden of government is entirely on the citizens, and it's no longer shared by these bureaucracies that really have huge amounts of power over the rest of us.
Well, Jenny Holland, thank you so much for giving us that insight. And we did actually cover that story about that disabled lady you were mentioning there a couple of weeks ago. But thank you, Jenny Holland, writer and commentator there on issues of misogyny.